Okay. Let's see. How do you want to do this, Gons?
I don't know.
Okay.
you kind of threw this article here.
This was kind of my little section here, but
sure.
Let's start here. I'll take this one first. This is thedailycaller.com. Wikipedia attempts to change definition of recession 41 times. We don't even really need to read the whole thing. Long story short, ever since the Biden White House has been out trying to tell us that we're not in a recession, Wikipedia editors attempted to change the definition of recession 41 times in roughly 1 week, leading an administrator to place a pause on editing Thursday.
I like how we're in the edit wars.
Yeah.
Who can edit superiorly?
Well, and this is the thing. A lot of people are taking this and sort of applying this to they redefined vaccination. Oh, they redefined woman. Oh, they redefined anti-vaxxer. Oh, they all these things that have been redefined sort of Orwellian style. In fact, there was there's a Daily Mail article from some scholar who is saying we were living in an Orwellian hellscape with the amount of redefinition that we've been. And it's so true. That's like a core principle of 1984 and the control in Orwell's dystopia is the constant redefinition of words. Yep. I mean, if you remember in the book, they weren't just occasionally redefining a word. They were constantly redefining words in order to sort of
keep the lie going,
instability in people's brains, where you just have to rely on in their case, Big Brother's, definition of things. And that's that's kind of what we saw with recession coming from the Biden White House. There was sort of this war on Wikipedia where you have the we know that Wikipedia has lots of intelligence agencies as editors, but there are also, real people as editors. And it was this sort of war trying to, change the definition to the Biden White House, then change it back, then try to find a different definition. And it's just a total mess. And I was reading this other article about the recession, and it made the point, and maybe it's in this article too, where, they're trying to say, yes, the two, quarters of
GDP slowdown. Yeah.
GDP slowdown means it's a recession, but it's also like up to the committee, it's up to Janet Yellen. It's up to the Fed, it's not automatically a recession, even though the last 10 times that this happened, 10 out of 10, it was called a recession, but magically it's this time, it's
this
not.
Time. Yeah. Okay.
And they made a point by saying, in the past, they always call it a recession retroactively. Like it's hard to call it a recession in the middle of the quarter.
Yeah, sure.
And so they kind of made room to be like, yeah, well, they might call it a recession later, but don't say it now. I mean, that's just. Well,
that's why I kept
pessimistic.
Saying, I did say the recession. The label recession is a lagging indicator. So, we're in it now, exactly. And then it'll be later when they're like, oh, yeah, it was. Because so now they're saying, no, it's not a recession. And then like 3-4 months from now, they'll be like, yeah, we were in a recession. We were trying to stave off depression. And here's more money. Hey, money printer. We need a new black swan is what maybe China Pelosi is it. But, the Fed tightening and all that kind of stuff.
In a way, Ukraine was that way.
Was that. But I don't think it was
we called it the second they came out of Afghanistan. We'll say we'll give them 6 months and then we'll be in another war. And it was exactly 6 months and we were in another war. Yeah. Now, I want to bring everybody's attention back to the months, actually all of 2021. And the economic attitudes of 2021, what was going on. And a lot of people I've realized kind of forgot. And we talked about it quite a bit in this show. And that was in 2021, more power had been in the hands of the working American than they had in a long, long time.
Yeah.
What do I mean by power? I mean, they had control of their destiny. They could change jobs. They could demand higher pay. And all these things were happening across the country. People were getting raises. And if they didn't get the raise, then they left and got more money elsewhere. The economy was in such a place where the corporation was sort of depowered, defanged, and the worker, the individual, could actually, they didn't have to have their entire lives ruled by some mid-level manager who was able to keep them in their job and threaten them and whatever, right? Mm-hmm. You remember this, right, Guns?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. 2021 was sort of marked with this idea that, oh my gosh, for once in our lives, we actually can confidently ask for a raise and then quit if we don't get it and go get a better job. Yeah. And it was turning the corporate elite world sort of upside down. And isn't it interesting how that got smushed? How quickly that got smushed. The working man had power for maybe 8 months during 2021. People realized that they could take control of their lives.
We saw articles,
they didn't have to be slaves to corporations.
We saw articles talk about now's a great time to change careers. If you ever dreamt of doing something else, now's the time to do it. That was all
there was
the
op-eds.
rage.
Yeah, there's op-eds about people who changed jobs 3 times in 3 months because they kept getting offered more money, better, work at home, better benefits, things like this. Boom, suddenly the working man could actually have some control. And I think it's pretty interesting how drastic, almost unexplainable moves by the powerful elite were taken for seemingly no reason, and has resulted in the working man now being completely stripped of any power that they had gained over 2021. It's almost as if somebody couldn't have planned it any better. Just in an imaginary world where sort of the political and financial elites were in cahoots with one another to maintain the power structure of some fallen world that they had gained control of. They could not have planned it any better than they did. And no longer does what I'm saying now have to be sort of a conspiracy theory on a podcast, because The Intercept has an article that says this: Bank of America memo revealed, we hope conditions for American workers will get worse. Oh,
thanks, Bank of America.
Okay, so we have a group of American financial elites putting in writing in black and white, we hope that this does not, we not only do we not hope that it gets, better, we hope that it gets worse for the American worker.
This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. And I am trying to stall because I had to get an archive version, and here I am. A Bank of America executive stated that we hope, that's in quotes, working Americans will lose leverage in the labor market in a recent private memo obtained by The Intercept, making predictions for clients about the U.S. economy over the next several years. The memo also noted that changes in the percentage of Americans seeking jobs, quote, should help push up the unemployment rate. The memo, a quote, mid-year review from June 17, was written by Ethan Harris, the head of global economics research for the corporation's investment banking arm, Bank of America Securities. Its specific aspiration, quote, by the end of next year, we hope the ratio of job openings to unemployed is down to more normal highs of the last business cycle. The memo comes amid a push by the Federal Reserve to cool down the economy. Informed by much of the same rationale that high wages are driving inflation. This year, the Fed has increased interest rates for the first time since 2018. Historically, this has often caused recessions, and that is exactly what appears to be happening now. The Commerce Department reported Thursday that the gross domestic product has fallen for the second quarter in a row, indicating that a recession may have already begun. Parts of the mid-year review, in particular its emphasis on a looming recession, received press coverage at the time of the memo's release to clients, but this is the first publication of the document in full. What the memo calls, quote, the ratio of job openings to unemployed is generally calculated the other way around, i.e., the ratio of unemployed people to job openings. The more widely used ratio offers one measurement of the balance of power between workers and employers. The lower this number, the more options unemployed people have when searching for work, and the greater opportunities employed people have to switch to jobs with better pay and conditions. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this ratio stood at 0.5 as of May, meaning that there were then 2 job openings per unemployed person. And it goes on to a little bit of history in 2009 and the situation after the 2008
financial
situation.
Collapse.
Yeah. The memo recalls a previous Bank of America memo in 2021, which it says warned of, quote, very strong momentum in the labor market. Warned. They were warning their fellow banker lizard people that there's very strong momentum in the labor market, suggesting the economy would not just hit, but blow through full employment. Fast forward to today, these trends have been worse than expected. The memo, and when they say worse, they mean American workers have jobs that can pay their bills. That is what's worse for the bankers. And when I say bankers, there are the bankers at the banks.
Right.
There are the politicians who own stock in those banks and are being lobbied and paid by the banking industry. You have those who have the power to sabotage the untraditional investment opportunities, the crypto crash, the crypto assassinations we've seen. When they're talking about Bank of America, but if this was written in ink and sent out through the Bank of America organization, you know that not only every bank felt the same way, but every person who stands to make money from the bank, every single congressperson, every single corporate CEO, every single financial and political elite was warning each other that the American worker was being treated too well. The memo is an uncanny demonstration that the economist Adam Smith was right when he described the politics of inflation in his famed 1776 work, The Wealth of Nations. Quote, high profits tend much more to raise the price of work than high wages, Smith argued. Quote, our merchants and master manufacturers complain much of the bad effects of high wages in raising the price. They say nothing concerning the bad effects of high profits. They are silent with regard to the pernicious effects of their own gains. They complain only of those of other people. Thus, exactly as Smith would have predicted, Bank of America complains loudly about the bad effects of high wages and raising prices, but appears to be silent about the pernicious effects of high profits. Those high profits, of course, belonging to the corporations. This is especially remarkable given the role that corporate profits have played in the recent increase in inflation. After-tax corporate profits stood at 8.1% of the economy at the beginning of 2020, but have since shot up to as high as 11.8% of the GDP. In an economy the size of the US, that equals an increase of more than $700 billion in profits per year. These higher corporate profits have been the cause of over 50% of recent price increases. So they are placing blame of 50% of inflation is simply on the profits being made by, Bank of America for one, Jeff Bezos, the whole lot of them. And that leaves the other 50% to Joe Biden. So, you can only blame him for half of it, apparently. Instead, the memo is focused on the enticing prospect of Federal Reserve raising interest rates, slowing the economy, bludgeoning workers back into line. The perspective of working Americans would generally be the exact opposite. For most of us, it's fantastic to have lots of jobs available with employers competing for you. A tight labor market is wonderful. Wage pressures are great. From this viewpoint, the key issue right now would be how to lower inflation while keeping employment and worker power high. Such a tack would include full-bore attempts to lessen supply chain issues and reduce the pricing power of big corporations. By the way, those two things are the two things that Joseph Robinette Biden talks about wanting to fix: the supply chain issues and the pricing power of big corporations. And yet, while he pays lip service to the working man, he's playing an integral role in the destruction of the power the working man had last year. The most interesting of all is that in Bank of America's enthusiasm for the Fed going on the attack against working people, it gets the basic facts wrong. The wage pressures have turned out not to be, as its memo claims, hard to reverse. Quote, I'm doing a full read here and we're just about done. Quote, if you did see continually accelerating wage growth, it would be a problem. Dean Baker, senior economist at the Center for Economic and Policy Research, a liberal Washington, D.C. think tank, told The Intercept in an email, quote, that would almost certainly mean a wage price spiral with ever higher inflation. However, nominal wage growth has slowed sharply from around a 6% annual rate to just over 4% in recent months. So, Bank of America wants the Fed to raise rates and unemployment to attack a problem of accelerating wage growth that doesn't exist in the world. The memo therefore tells us what we suspected all along. The most powerful economic actors in the U.S., entities like Bank of America and its clients, do not like working people to have power, but it's nice to have it in their own words. Harris, the author, was not available for comment. So when we talk about everything going on right now, of course, we know, and we've talked about the fact that, the politicians are playing their role. Everybody's playing their role. The Great Reset is playing their role. A world filled with empowered workers is a hard world to destroy and hard to reset. Why would anybody want to reset a world where regular people have any power?
Have jobs, have income, jobs, they can support their families,
have income, have security. You don't want to reset a world filled with secure workers. That's very hard to get support for your Great Reset.
I think this is go ahead, finish your thought there.
No.
I was going to say, I think this is part of the I don't know if radicalization might be too strong of a word, but giving something to the people, taking it away quickly, what does that do? Yeah. It angers a generation, right?
Totally.
And when it comes to what we're seeing with Christian nationalism is another sort of psyop to get people to rise up for a cause, although it's not exactly working.
Well, I don't think...
When it comes to money...
You make a great point. I don't think the Christian nationalists thing would even be a thing if it weren't for this intentional destruction of safety and stability.
Right. So yeah, I think it's meant to anger. Releasing this memo, making it public, is meant to anger. It's all part of the design. It's part of the script where you get the people to get comfortable, which is really interesting. If you think back to COVID 2020 and Biden, hey, was it Biden or was it Trump that gave $1,200 to everybody? Was that Trump's time?
Biden did the 1,200. I'm sorry. No. Trump did the 1,200 and then Biden did the subsequent ones. He did a bunch more. So, and I was reading yesterday, I can't remember the outlet, but basically said that in 2022, the average family in the United States will spend about $10,000 more just to spend or break even from the years past. So thanks government for giving us $1,200, but it's going to take at least $10,000 to break even to keep up with inflation. Right. So it all feels so designed. It's like, give them all this money, make them very complacent. They're all in their houses, and let them all invest in crypto, and then we'll just crash it all. They'll be upset, and then we can have a true revolution. So, yeah, it all seems to be right in line with what their plans are, which is, we see it coming for years and long term, and it's interesting to watch some of it just roll out so quickly. And I don't know, it feels good on one hand, but it also kind of feels like, the people that have been listening and paying attention, they know, but so many people don't. It's it feels wasted to know and to have warned of things when so many people didn't really take heed. But here we are, and I guess we just got to work through it.